Hello, I'm David Carr, Programme Manager for Open Research at the Wellcome Trust. In this short presentation, I'm going to talk about why opening up access to research data and other research outputs is so important to us as a research funder. I'll also briefly outline some of our key priorities and activities to support the research community in making their research outputs more open. First, a quick word about Wellcome for those who might not know us. We're a global research foundation, and we're dedicated to supporting science to solve the most urgent health challenges facing everyone. As a research funder, it's absolutely vital to us that the outputs of the research we fund, which include publications, data sets, software, materials, and a whole range of other types of valued outputs of research, can be accessed and used in ways that maximize the benefit to health and to society. So as such, Wellcome has been a passionate champion and advocate of open access to research publications and research data sharing for many years. We have long-standing policy expectations in place, and we've initiated a range of different types of activities to promote open research more broadly. So why is maximising access to research data and other research outputs so important to us and to other research funders? Well, firstly, and perhaps most importantly, opening up access to research outputs enables them to be accessed and reused by the widest number of brightest minds in ways that really sort of amplify the benefit that flows from that research, accelerating and opening up new lines of discovery and enabling its application for health and societal benefit. Second, providing access to underlying data and software is absolutely vital to ensure that published research findings can be properly validated, scrutinized, and ultimately reproduced. Third, as a funder, we're particularly keen to, where possible, reduce unnecessary duplication and avoidable waste in the research enterprise. Where it's possible to do so, that includes through promoting the reuse of existing data and other outputs rather than the generation of new data where it's possible and appropriate to do so. And finally, opening up access to research outputs enables them to be potentially accessed and used by a whole range of different types of users, not just research users. So that might include policymakers, healthcare professionals, and indeed the broader public. Around 4 years ago, Wellcome decided to establish a dedicated in-house open research team to spearhead our work to maximise access to research outputs. And in establishing that function within Wellcome, we set out an underlying vision for what we wanted to achieve in open research. And that is to work with others to create a world where there are transformative improvements in human health because research outputs are managed, shared and used in ways that unleash their full value. Now, the open research team at Wellcome, of which I'm part, sort of focuses around three broad areas of work. Firstly, we work to develop a number of major initiatives, funder-led initiatives, to support the research community and drive forward change in terms of the adoption of open practices. I'm going to talk more about the Wellcome Open Research Publishing Platform in a second, but that's perhaps the highest profile example of an activity of this type, where we've seen an opportunity for us to really lead as a funder in supporting the community and driving change. So Wellcome as a funder also seeks to support innovative new approaches to open research through encouraging the community to come to us with their ideas. We run a funding competition called the Open Research Fund, which enables researchers and other innovators to pilot cutting-edge ideas for advancing open research. We've run prizes to encourage and celebrate data reuse, and we provide other types of flexible fundings for community-led projects. And finally, we actively seek to take a lead as a funder and indeed to work with other funders in developing policies and practices to advance open research practices. Having set that out by way of introduction, I'll now briefly describe some of our current priority activities as a funding to promote research data sharing. We have a well-established policy on managing and sharing research data, which dates back to 2007. In 2017, 10 years after the introduction of that policy, we worked to expand the scope of that policy to also include research software and materials. This was really to recognise the key importance of software and materials alongside data as key research outputs. But we also really wanted to encourage the researchers we support to take a holistic view of the outputs being generated by their research, and how best to manage and share those outputs in a way that ultimately maximises the benefit of that research. So there's an overarching requirement in the policy that we expect the researchers we support to make the outputs of their research available with as few restrictions as possible, and as I say, in a manner that will ultimately maximise the benefit from that research. And applicants to us for funding are required to include what's called an outputs management plan as part of their funding application. So this plan enables them to set out the approach which they believe they should use to manage and share the outputs that they anticipate their research will generate in a way that will ultimately maximise the benefit of that being generated from those outputs. Now, Wellcome calls these plans outputs management plans because we also include software and materials and indeed intellectual property within the scope of those plans. But these plans are broadly equivalent to the data management plans that many other funders ask of researchers, and take a similar format to those. So the output management plans that we ask applicants to provide and the costs associated with them are considered and reviewed as an integral part of the decision on whether to support that research. And we commit as a funder to resource the costs needed to put those plans into practice as an integral part of funding the research we support. So while researchers are free in outputs management plans to set out the approach and the timeline for making data, software, materials available in a way that will maximise the benefit, there's a key overarching requirement in the policy that data and software underlying publications must be made available to other researchers at the time of publication. So in terms of putting that policy into practice, we've given a lot of thought over the years to how we can support researchers and institutions to develop outputs management plans, and this is something that we've developed particularly over the last year or so. So over recent months, we have updated the guidance we provide to researchers on developing outputs management plans. To try to provide more granular details of resources they should consider, and also crucially examples of what we consider to be good practice outputs management plans to use as exemplars in considering their own outputs management plans. We're also just getting going on an exciting piece of work, which is a pilot of a service to support our funded researchers and their institutions to improve the quality of outputs management plans. So this is in cases where, for research that's been approved for funding, those who've reviewed the grants on our behalf have identified areas for potential improvement in the outputs management plans. And so we'll be working with the researchers and with data stewards at their institutions to look at how we can potentially help to improve their outputs management plans in a way that will maximise the value of data and other outputs being generated by that research. So I mentioned briefly a second or so ago that we've developed a publishing platform for our funded researchers called Wellcome Open Research, and this enables the researchers we support to rapidly and openly publish a whole range of different types of research outputs. So publications on the platform include traditional research articles, but also a range of different of other article types, including data and software descriptors, protocols, registered reports, and a whole range of other output types. The platform uses a post-publication peer review mechanism whereby submissions are made openly available after passing some initial checks, and then the peer review process happens completely in the open, and the work is obviously available to to access and use to the broader community from the outset. Now, the Wellcome Open Research platform has garnered a lot of interest and engagement from across the researchers we support, and this includes early career researchers. So we hope very much that it's a resource that early career researchers and indeed PhD students that we support can make use of to publish and gain credit for a range of different types of research outputs they produce. To help us really take on board the views of early career researchers and develop the platform in a way that recognises the perspective of these key constituency, we've established an early career advisory board associated with Wellcome Open Research, which is made up of several early career researchers that Wellcome supports. And we've actually just been working with that board to develop a series of tools and resources to help researchers, to help and encourage researchers in sharing research data. I'd urge you to check out those resources. I think there's some really nice tools and viewpoints within those materials, which really sort of provide assistance and support in terms of maximising the value of research data. So as a funder, we are increasingly encouraging the researchers we support to make data and indeed other outputs available in line with the so-called FAIR principles, findable, accessible, interoperable and reusable, really recognising in common with many other funders that those and the broader research community, that those principles, that there's really sort of increasing alignment with those around those principles in describing the characteristics that research data in particular should have in order to enable it to be shared in a way that really maximizes its value. So our Wellcome Open Research platform provides guidance for authors on data sharing, which is based around the FAIR principles. We've also initiated an ongoing pilot with Springer Nature, the publisher, to offer expert support to our funded researchers in sharing data associated with publications in a discoverable and usable manner. So this is through making available the Springer Nature research data support service to our funded researchers at no additional cost to them. In the slightly longer term, we're also working with other funders very actively to explore the scope to develop software tools that can help access the extent to which data outputs are being made available in line with the FAIR principles in an automated fashion. Our rationale for doing this is to provide tools to help researchers and give them actionable advice in ways they can make their outputs available in a way that sort of beats the FAIR principles, but also to give us an approach as a funder to look across outputs being generated by the research we support and identify areas where sort of further investment is needed to make things available in line with those principles. Finally, Wellcome is also working very actively to help ensure that the broader research environment really enables and incentivizes open practices. We're an active supporter of the San Francisco Declaration on Research Assessment, DORA, through which a growing number of organisations and individuals internationally have come together to commit to ensure that research assessment processes do not use journal title or journal level metrics as a proxy for assessing the quality of individual research outputs or indeed individual researchers, and that research assessment practices recognise a full range of different types of research outputs, so including data sets and software, for example, and also other types of valued research contributions. We are actively supporting and participating in the US National Academy of Science project around aligning incentives for open research between funders and institutions. And we're working actively as a funder to help develop resources and practices for data sharing in areas where there's a need. One key area of focus to this end has been around clinical trial data sharing, where we've worked to help support emerging platforms for making clinical trial data available, including the clinical study data request.com and Vivly resources. So I will leave it there. I hope this talk has provided a flavour of how we're working as a funder to support and enable data sharing and open research. I look forward very much to answering your questions and to discussing further at the panel session. But for now, thank you very much indeed for listening and all my best wishes.